$1,247. That is not your net worth. It is not your emergency fund. It is simply your balance. You are checking it at 11:43 p.m., lying on a second-hand mattress that still smells faintly of someone else's life, a Facebook marketplace find that was all you could afford. You refresh the app at 11:44. The number stays frozen. Behind that digit lies a mountain of invisible weight. $31,000 in student loans, a $4,200 credit card balance that keeps you up at night, and a direct deposit hitting this Friday that has already been spent on rent and survival. You are 23 years old. You tell yourself that you aren't behind. You whisper it like a mantra. But the reality is in the grocery aisle. It's the split-second calculation where you put the premium olive oil back and reach for the store brand. It's sharing a streaming password with an ex or a former friend you don't even like anymore, because paying for your own feels like losing the last inch of ground you have left. This is what level zero feels like. It isn't a sudden explosion or a cinematic tragedy. It is a low, constant hum of arithmetic running underneath every single thing you do. At this stage, money isn't a tool to build a future. It is the very air in your lungs. Your relationship with wealth is 100% emotional, and when you're desperate, those emotions start compounding in the wrong direction. Then it happens. You cross the $10,000 mark. You're 26 now. You've never seen 5 figures in a single account before, not once in your life. For the first week, you check the balance every single morning, not out of the old gnawing anxiety, but out of pure disbelief. You don't spend it. You just let it sit there, feeling its weight. The psychological impact of having $10,000 when you've had nothing is completely disproportionate to the actual value of the money. It feels like you've been promoted to a different category of human being, but you haven't, not yet. What has changed is your appetite for knowledge. You stop looking for get-rich-quick hacks and start reading books about how money actually moves through the world. You learn the mechanics of an index fund. You open a brokerage account and stare at the transfer button for 3 weeks, paralyzed, before finally moving your first $1,500. The market dips 2% the very next day. Your heart sinks. Your instinct is to pull it all out, to flee back to the safety of your mattress. But you don't. This is the exact moment you decide who is in charge, your fear or your logic. You stop viewing money as a safety net and start viewing it as raw information. By the time you hit $40,000, you're making $68,000 a year. You have a Roth IRA. You're checking all the boxes, maxing the 401k, dodging lifestyle inflation. By every societal measure, you are fine. But then, you sit down at midnight with a spreadsheet. You project your disciplined life 40 years into the future, and as the graph populates, something shifts in your chest. The number at the end is enough, but it isn't what you dreamed of. You've reached the competence plateau. You've become an expert at surviving, but you haven't even begun the art of building. The realization hits you like a cold wave. Your salary is a ceiling dressed up as a floor. It's meant to keep you comfortable enough to stay, but not wealthy enough to leave. The moment you see this clearly, you can never unsee it. So you start a side project. You don't call it a business yet. It's just a thing you do on weekends. It makes $400 a month, then $900. Then suddenly, it's generating $1,700 of pure, independent income. You keep your mouth shut. You don't tell your boss. You don't tell your friends at happy hour. You keep eating the same lunches, driving the same car, and living in the same apartment, while your net worth quietly crosses $80,000. Then, $110,000. You're living a double life. On the outside, you look like everyone else, but internally, you are starting to feel the gap. The gap is the distance between where a salary alone could take you and where your independent engine is actually going. One morning, you check your accounts and realize your investments returned $3,800 in a single year without you lifting a finger. You've had months where your side income was higher than your day job's paycheck. This is the birth of the asset, not as a word in a textbook, but as a living, breathing machine that earns while you sleep. By 32, you hit $150,000. You stop measuring hours by what they pay you and start measuring them by how much compounding they generate. If an hour doesn't build the machine, it starts to feel like a wasted hour. You are no longer just surviving. You are now officially in the game of leverage. By $300,000, your money starts to develop a personality. It has preferences. It wants to flow into certain sectors and aggressively resists others. You've had a single investment return $22,000 in 8 months, and you've had another lose $9,400. The old version of you would have panicked, but the current version of you doesn't even flinch. You don't pull back, you reposition. You realize that loss is simply the ante, the cost of staying at the table. This is the phase of the great filter. You start saying no to things that used to be automatic yeses. A destination wedding you can't afford without liquidating an asset? No. A group holiday where you'd end up subsidizing 3 people? No. A can't-miss business pitch from a friend who doesn't understand cash flow? No. You feel the friction in your oldest relationships. You stay quiet anyway. The third rule hits you. Below $500,000, you are buying assets. Above it, your assets start buying each other. By age 36, you hit $920,000. You aren't sleeping as well as you used to, but it isn't stress. It's intensity. You're turning down job offers that pay $210,000 a year because they feel like a step backward. Your parents don't understand. You don't even try to explain it anymore. Then, on a completely unremarkable Tuesday, it happens. You refresh your screen, and the number is $1,040,000. You expected a choir of angels. Instead, there is only a quiet, clinical satisfaction. And almost immediately, the realization: it's not enough. $1 million at a 4% return is only $40,000 a year. That isn't freedom. It's just the proof of concept. The millionaire arrives only to realize the milestone wasn't the destination. It was just the qualifying round for the real game. By $2.3 million, money stops being a source of anxiety entirely. It is simply a resource, like time, like attention, like electricity. You don't check your bank balance to see if you can afford a meal. You check your allocation to see where your capital is positioned. You hire a wealth manager, then fire him when you realize you've spent more time studying your own edge than he has. Your business is now doing $4.1 million in revenue. You own equity and rental properties worth nearly $400,000. You aren't rich in the way people mean it at dinner parties. You are wealthy in the way that means you own your time. You take a 3-week trip, and for 5 of those days, you don't even look at your email. That is the ultimate luxury that $100,000 couldn't buy you: the 5 days of silence. But as you hit $5 million, the texture of the game changes again. It's no longer about building. It's about positioning. You are moving capital now, not working for it. You're in a deal that might return $800,000 in 18 months, and you're in another that might go to zero. And you're okay with both because you understand how they de-risk each other. At $14 million, you walk into rooms where decisions are made. You are at the table with family offices managing hundreds of millions. They want to co-invest alongside you, not because they like you, but because your pattern recognition and your capital are genuinely useful to them. Your reputation has become a financial instrument. It earns returns independent of your daily effort. You realize that at $10 million, you don't lobby for change, you advise on policy. The distinction is subtle, but the power behind it is absolute. By the time your net worth crosses $30 million, you are 54 years old. You have built structures, trusts, foundations, holding companies that will comfortably outlive you. You stop pretending. Pretending costs energy, and energy is now the only currency you have that doesn't compound. The machine you spent decades building finally achieves its ultimate purpose. It no longer requires your presence. It requires only your positioning. You could vanish for 6 months, and the capital would still move, the dividends would still land, and the assets would still grow because you breathe. You have a direct line to the people who set policy, the ones behind the politicians. Isolation isn't loneliness, it's just a different altitude. Your closest friendships are now limited to those who operate at the same pressure level. How do you explain regulatory positioning to someone worrying about their mortgage? You don't. You've become a person whose daily reality is simply untranslatable to the people who knew you at the beginning. You give more money away now than you ever thought possible, not for the tax break, but because at $100 million, money has stopped being a measure of your worth. Giving is one of the only things left that feels like a real, human decision. You are 61. Your net worth is $94 million. You think in cycles now, demographic shifts, credit cycles, decades. You read the weather of the global economy 3 days before the storm hits. Then, one afternoon, you see him. A 24-year-old standing in line at a grocery store. His balance is exactly $1,247. He looks at the premium coffee, hesitates, and puts it back for the store brand. He thinks this is a story about money. He thinks if he just makes more of it, his problems will vanish. He doesn't know yet that the machine doesn't care if he's ready. It only asks for consistency, for the courage to stay in the game without flinching. The money compounds, but so does the distance. It always starts at $1,247, and for the few who never stop, it never truly ends.